On my wedding day, I didn't react when I saw my parents standing at the back of the room. I didn't question it, didn't stop the ceremony, didn't confront anyone, because by then, I already knew it wasn't a mistake. It was planned, quietly, carefully. And the worst part? The man I was about to marry knew exactly what was happening and said nothing. My parents weren't forgotten. They weren't misplaced. They were moved, deliberately, publicly, like they didn't belong in the room I was about to walk into. And in that moment, something in me went completely still. I didn't cry. I didn't argue. I didn't ruin the moment. I waited. Because sometimes, the strongest move isn't stopping the plan. It's letting everyone believe it's working, until the exact second you end it. My name is Elena Carter. I'm 31 years old, and this happened in Chicago, Illinois. Before we continue, if you enjoy stories where silence turns into power, subscribe and tell me in the comments, would you have stopped the wedding immediately or waited until everyone was watching? Now let me take you back. Because this didn't start on the wedding day. It started the night someone warned me to check the seating plan. The message came the night before the wedding. No name, no explanation. Just one line. Check your seating plan. At first, it didn't feel urgent. Weddings are messy. Details change. People move things around. So I almost ignored it. But something about it felt precise. Not helpful. Not casual. Like someone wasn't warning me. They were pointing me. I didn't show it to my fiancé, didn't forward it, didn't ask anyone what it meant. Because instincts don't need a committee. They need space. And something inside me said, check it yourself. Quietly. Because if something was wrong, I didn't want it fixed too early. I wanted to see it exactly as it was. When I called the planner, her tone changed immediately. She stayed polite, professional. But there was hesitation in it. The kind people use when they already know they're standing too close to a lie. Everything is finalized, she said. Too quick, too smooth, too careful. And that's when I knew something had been changed. Then she said it. Your fiancé made a few adjustments. Adjustments. Such a harmless word. Such a clean word. But weddings don't run on harmless words. Every change means something. Every placement tells a story. And suddenly, this wasn't about logistics. It was about intention. I didn't react, didn't challenge her, didn't ask why. I just said, send me the updated layout. Calm, flat, direct. And when she hesitated, just for a second, that hesitation told me more than any answer could have. When the file opened, I didn't check the whole room. I looked for one thing. My parents. And they weren't where they were supposed to be. Not at the front. Not near the family section. Not even in the middle of the room. They had been moved. Quietly, cleanly, deliberately, like someone thought I wouldn't notice. His family was everywhere. Front rows, center tables, prime placement. The kind of seating that doesn't just organize people. It ranks them. And the message was obvious. This wedding was not being built around both families. It was being staged around one. I called my mother. Not to explain. Not to confront. Just to confirm. And she answered too calmly. Don't worry, she said. We'll stand at the back. That sentence hit harder than the seating chart, because she already knew. And worse than that, she had already decided not to make it a problem. That's when everything changed for me, because this wasn't confusion, it wasn't stress, it wasn't a last-minute mistake. It had already been accepted, allowed, absorbed. And that made it worse, because disrespect becomes powerful the moment good people decide to survive it quietly. I didn't ask him about it that night. Didn't mention the message. Didn't say a word about the layout. Because explanations change behavior, and I didn't want a polished excuse. I wanted the truth. Untouched. Unmanaged. Exactly as it was. So I stayed quiet and let the wedding day come. That night, I didn't sleep. Not because I was emotional, because I was thinking. Carefully. Because knowing something happened is not the same as understanding why it happened. And this wasn't random. This wasn't messy planning. This was structured, intentional, decided. And I needed to know one thing. Was he aware? Or was he responsible? Because those are two very different truths. The next morning, I didn't confront him, didn't ask questions, didn't give him the chance to explain. I opened his laptop, not out of jealousy, not out of insecurity, out of necessity. Because when people make quiet decisions, they leave quiet records, emails, messages, confirmations, and if this was planned, it would be there. It didn't take long. One email thread between him and the planner. Simple subject line. No emotion, no hesitation, just details, adjustments, requests, confirmations, back and forth. Clean, efficient, controlled. Like it wasn't a wedding. Like it was a transaction. Then I saw it. One sentence. Short, direct, unapologetic. Her family doesn't match our image. That was it. No explanation, no second thought, no hesitation, just a decision, written like it was obvious, like it didn't even need to be questioned. And in that moment, everything made sense. This wasn't about chairs, or tables, or organization. This was about perception, about image, about how things looked to the people in that room, and where my family fit in that image, which, apparently, was nowhere. I didn't stop there, because one truth is never alone. There's always more behind it. More instructions, more adjustments, more control. Every detail, shaped carefully. Not for us, not for the wedding, but for appearance, for approval, for status. Then I opened the contract, something I hadn't looked at closely before, because I trusted him, and buried inside it was a clause. Legal language, easy to overlook, but very clear. If the bride disrupts the event, a financial penalty applies, immediate, significant, and suddenly, everything connected. The placement, the silence, the structure, public humiliation, followed by pressure to stay calm, because reacting would cost me, not just emotionally, financially, legally. He didn't just plan the moment. He planned my reaction. I didn't feel overwhelmed, didn't feel angry, because emotions would only serve his plan. Instead, I felt clarity. Because once you understand the system, you can break it. And I realized something important. He thought he had control. But control only works when the other person doesn't know. That same day, I called the planner, not as a bride, as the client. I reviewed the contract, adjusted the authority, removed the clause, legally, cleanly, completely. And I didn't tell him. Because the most effective moves are the ones no one sees coming. The morning of the wedding felt calm. Too calm. Not chaotic. Not overwhelming. Just controlled. Like everything had already been decided. And I moved through it quietly. Getting ready. Listening. Watching. Because when you already know the truth, you don't panic. You prepare. He didn't seem nervous. Didn't avoid me. Didn't act different. He was calm, confident, composed. Like everything was going exactly as planned. And that told me something important. He believed I didn't know. The venue was flawless. Lighting, decor, arrangement. Everything placed with precision. Anyone walking in would think, this is perfect. But perfection is where control hides best. Because when everything looks right, no one questions anything. I didn't look at the flowers, didn't admire the setup. I looked for one thing, my parents. And when I found them, they were exactly where I expected. At the back. Standing. No seats, no space, just present, without recognition. They smiled when they saw me. Not forced, not fake, just gentle. Like they didn't want to make it harder for me. Like they had already accepted it. And somehow, that made it worse. Because dignity, in moments like that, is quiet. Guests started noticing. Not loudly, not directly, but through glances, small pauses, shifted attention. Because something felt wrong, even if no one said it. And when enough people feel it, the room changes. His family moved confidently, greeting people, taking space, leading the room, like everything belonged to them, and no one questioned it. Because when something looks intentional, people assume it's right. I watched him, waiting for anything. A reaction, a correction, a sign. But there was nothing. No acknowledgement, no hesitation, just silence. And that silence confirmed everything. The music started, guests settled, the moment arrived. Everything aligned, exactly as planned, exactly as designed. And I stood there, knowing something no one else did. I didn't stop it, didn't interrupt, didn't expose anything. Not yet. Because timing is what makes truth powerful. Too early, it looks emotional. At the right moment, it becomes undeniable. So I walked forward, calm, steady, ready. When I stepped forward, everyone assumed the same thing. A speech, a thank you, something emotional. Because that's what brides do. They smile, they speak softly, they follow the moment. And the room relaxed into that expectation. People leaned forward slightly, waiting, not for disruption, but for something familiar. I didn't speak immediately. I just stood there, calm, looking across the room, letting the silence stretch, just long enough to make people aware of it. Because silence does something important. It makes people listen, and slowly, the room changed. Conversation stopped. Movements paused. Eyes turned. Because now, this wasn't routine anymore. Then I said it. Not loudly, not emotionally. Before we continue, let's fix something first. And that sentence shifted everything. Because it didn't sound like a speech. It sounded like a correction. And people felt it. Immediately. That's when he looked at me. For the first time. Confused. Not worried yet. Just uncertain. Because this wasn't part of his plan. And when something falls outside control, people notice, even if they don't understand it yet. I didn't meet his eyes. Didn't acknowledge him. Because this wasn't about him anymore. Not directly. This was about truth. And truth doesn't need confrontation. It needs exposure. So I stayed focused, centered, still. Then the venue manager stepped forward, exactly when I needed him to. Calm, professional, clear. He addressed the room. Before the ceremony continues, I need to clarify something. And now, everything changed, because authority had entered the moment. And authority forces people to pay attention. He continued. The event is now under the bride's full authority. Clear, official, undeniable. And in that moment, control shifted. Not quietly, not privately, publicly. Because now, this wasn't his structure anymore. This was mine. I saw it, subtle, but real. That shift in his face, that moment where certainty cracks. Not dramatic, not obvious to everyone, but enough. Because he understood something now. This wasn't going the way he planned. Then the screen behind us turned on. Slowly. No announcement, no warning, just light. And instantly, everyone looked. Because visuals don't ask permission, they demand attention. And the room shifted again, from curiosity to anticipation. And then it was there, clear, unavoidable. His words. Her family doesn't match our image. No edits, no explanation, no distortion, just truth. Projected in front of everyone, and for the first time, the room didn't whisper. It reacted. The moment those words appeared, the room shifted. Not slowly, not subtly, immediately. Because some truths don't need explanation, they explain everything on their own. People leaned forward, some turned toward him, others looked at each other, but no one looked confused anymore. Now, they understood. His family, the same people who had filled the center of the room, went quiet. Not defensive, not loud, just still. Because when something is exposed publicly, it doesn't stay personal. It becomes collective. And for the first time, they weren't leading the moment anymore. They were part of it. Then the planner stepped forward. Unplanned, unexpected, but necessary. There's something else you should know. And just like that, attention shifted again. Because now, this wasn't just one moment. It was becoming a pattern. She explained everything. The requests, the changes, the instructions, and the extra payment offered to make sure the seating stayed exactly as it was. Hidden, intentional. Then someone from his side spoke, an older woman, calm, certain. This isn't the first time. And that line cut deeper than anything else, because now, this wasn't pressure, this wasn't stress, this was behavior. Repeated, recognizable, and suddenly, this wasn't about a wedding anymore. It was about who he really was. My father stepped forward, slowly, not angry, not loud, just steady. And he looked at him, not with rage, but disappointment, and said, "We raised her better than this." And the silence after that was heavier than anything else, because disappointment doesn't shout. It lands. For the first time, he didn't respond, didn't defend himself, didn't explain anything, because there was nothing left to control, no version to reshape, no narrative to fix. Everything had already been shown. And in moments like that, silence isn't power, it's exposure. I looked at my hand, at the ring, at what it was supposed to represent, and what it actually did. Not love, not partnership, just illusion. And slowly, I removed it. Not dramatically, not emotionally, just intentionally. I placed the ring down, between us, clear, final, and said, "This wedding is over." No raised voice, no explanation, because endings don't need long speeches. They need clarity. Then I turned, walked to the back of the room, to the only place that had ever been real that day. My parents. I took their hands, and in that moment, I didn't feel like I was losing something. I felt like I was choosing something, because respect matters more than image, and presence matters more than performance. As we walked out, I didn't look back. Not at him, not at the guests, not at what was left behind. Because some things don't deserve a second look. He thought humiliating my family would make him look powerful, but all it did was show everyone exactly who he was. And the truth is, if someone can stand next to you and stay silent while your family is disrespected, they didn't choose you. They chose convenience. They chose image. They chose the easier version of love. And that's not love. That's control. If you've ever stayed quiet and waited for the right moment to let the truth speak, you understand this. Tell me in the comments, would you have stopped the wedding earlier or done the same? I read every single comment, and your next story is waiting on your screen. I'll see you there.